Quadratic equations are equations that can be written in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, like this one up here, where a isn't 0. Right? We call them second degree equations. The second degree comes from the 2 up here. The x squared means that it's of the second degree. Quite often you can solve quadratic equations by factorizing. That's taking a factor out or somehow putting things. For example, this equation here, you're going to end up factorizing the x squared plus x minus 6 to solve that one. The point of that is that once you've got one factor times another factor equals 0, then either the first factor is equal to 0 or the second factor is equal to 0. Okay, so let's have a look at how we can actually deal with that in this particular problem here, the x squared plus x minus 6 equals 0. From work that we've been doing over the last week or so, or last 2 weeks, we should know how to factorize x squared plus x minus 6. It's a matter of looking for two numbers that multiply to give negative 6 and add to give, there's an invisible 1 before the x. So two numbers that multiply to give negative 6 and add to give 1. Well, the two numbers I can think of are negative 2 and 3. Right? Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. Negative 2 plus 3 is 1. Now, once we've got that, then either x minus 2 is equal to 0, or x plus 3 is equal to 0. Now, once we've got that, the first equation gives us x equals 2, and the second equation gives us x equals negative 3. If you like, you can just check that that actually works. You can try putting x equals 2 into the equation x squared plus x minus 6. That's 2 squared plus 2 minus 6. Now let's just check that. That's 4 plus 2 minus 6. Yeah, that's 0. Now in example 2, we have 4x squared minus 9 equals 0. That's this equation here. Now this should be familiar to you. This 4x squared we can write as 2x all squared. And the 9 is equal to 3 squared. That's a difference of squared type of situation. So if we rewrite the 4x squared minus 9 as 2x all squared minus 3 squared, that we should be able to factorize that. We factorize it to 2x plus 3 times 2x minus 3, and that's equal to 0. So either this 2x plus 3 can be equal to 0, or the 2x minus 3 can be equal to 0. Then it's fairly straightforward after that to solve solving those two equations should give us x equals negative 3 over 2 or x equals positive 3 over 2. There is a special case, and that's a case if you have a situation where you have an equation like x squared equals 9. It has two solutions. We have the two solutions being 3 or negative 3. You can write that as x equals plus or minus 3, this notation here. In the same way, if you have x squared equals 17, you could have x equals positive root 17 or negative root 17. So you could write it as plus or minus root 17 for short. Just one other incidental. If you have an equation that's x squared equals k, then x, as we said before, could be plus or minus the square root of k, whatever k is. But that only works if you've got k bigger than 0, a positive k. If k is equal to 0, then there's only one answer, it's 0. And if you try to get the square root of a negative number, bad things happen. It's not possible, at least with the mathematics we have at the moment. We can't get the square root of a negative number. So x has no solutions if you're trying to get the square root of a negative number. Now, to solve an equation like 3x squared plus 2 equals 17, we've got to get it so that it says x squared equals something, and then we can get two answers from that. It's quite straightforward. We, first of all, subtract 2 away from both sides, so we get 3x squared equals 15. The next step is to divide by 3. We get x squared equals 5. And the next and last step, is to take the square root. But remember, it can be plus or negative root 5. And finally, for example 4, we have something squared equals 25. So let's think about what that something can be. When I say something, that something is the x plus 2. So that x plus 2, when we square it, is 25. So what does that tell you that x plus 2 must be? Well, that x plus 2 has to be equal to either positive 5 or negative 5. And from there, it's a matter of solving. That's actually two equations, x plus 2 equals plus 5, x plus 2 equals negative 5. But we can solve both of those equations just by subtracting 2 from both sides. So x is equal to negative 2 plus 5, or x is equal to negative 2 minus 5. And that gives us these two answers. X equals negative 7, x equals 3.